And detoxing is all about getting, if you've ever done a diet, I shared this with the first week of the message. I did a diet with my wife, and it was all about detoxing, getting the poisons out of your body. I had to drink this special liquid for a whole week, and it was all about just cleansing your body of all those toxins. Why? Because those toxins in your body keep you from being healthy, right? Well, there's a lot of us that are spiritually and emotionally unhealthy because we've got some toxins. And those toxins are hurts, habits, and hang-ups in our life that are keeping us from truly being healthy. And maybe you're sitting here and you're going, you know what? I've been a Christian since I was 5 years old. So I know I'm healthy, right? No, that's not how it works. There's a lot of emotionally unhealthy Christians in church. They've got a lot of hurts, a lot of habits, a lot of hang-ups that have not been healed. Yeah, you come on Sunday. Yeah, you go to a Bible study. But that doesn't mean that you're healed. And if you want to be honest, I would say most of us in here are messed up in one way or another. There's a lot of hurt and a lot of pain in this room. In fact, one of the things that I've learned is that you and I were really good at covering up our hurt and our pain. What we do is we develop harmful habits. These habits are our way of kind of covering up, of dealing with the hurt and pain by covering it up. In fact, if you've ever found somebody, maybe it's you or maybe it's somebody connected to you, but they've had this habit in their life, what that habit represents is really their hurt and their pain that hasn't been dealt with, screaming out, I'm hurting. I'm hurting. The habit is the cover-up. And what happens, though, for us is when we try to deal with the problem, what a lot of us do is we skip the hurt and we focus on the bad habit. It doesn't matter what habit it is. You can pick it. Maybe it's spending, maybe it's drinking, maybe it's pornography, maybe it's shopping, maybe it's television, lying, overeating. Whatever it is, the habit will never stop screaming until you get to the root of the hurt. But what a lot of us do is we simply say, you know what? I'm going to stop drinking. And then we try to conquer that habit, but we just end up replacing it because we haven't dealt with the hurt. We just replace the habit. It's a sick and vicious cycle that leaves us miserable. But let me tell you this, there's good news today. Because the good news is that with God's help, you and I can be free. We can be healed of our hurt. We can experience greater joy. We can experience deeper peace. We can experience more enriching relationships. We can live out our God-given potential. So let me ask you this. How many of you would say, man, I'm interested. Pastor, I want more. Yeah, tell me more about that. Right? Nobody. All right. Well, we're going to close today. Well, in this series, we're looking at 8 statements, 8 choices that you and I need to make in order to heal our hurts, habits, and hang-ups. We're going to learn how to detox. Detoxing basically boils down to 8 choices that you and I need to make. And these choices are based on the principles of Celebrate Recovery. Week 1, choice 1, was the reality choice. And that one says, realize I'm not God, admit I'm powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing, and my life is unmanageable. Now, some of us, you look at that first part, you say, realize I'm not God. That's an easy one, right? You're like, of course, right? But the truth is, we try to control things. We try to control things way too much. And what the reality is that we are out of control. You can't even stop yourself from doing the things you know you shouldn't do. And it's time that you admitted that. And recognize that. That's choice one. That was week one, choice one. Week two is the hope choice. To earnestly believe that God exists, that I matter to Him, and He has the power to help me to change. Each of us is on a journey called life. And there's going to be pain and hurt. But you and I can be comforted by the fact that God is crazy in love with us. He loves us so much. Regardless of our imperfections, He loves us so much, and He has the power to help us to be different, to change, to transform. And that is the hope choice. Now, the summary of these two choices is this: I'm not God. I don't have the power to change myself, but there's a God who's crazy about me, who loves me, who wants to have a deeper, more meaningful relationship with Him, who wants to see me change. All right? That's good news. That's good stuff. But just one and two, just those first two steps, those first two choices, really doesn't get us anywhere. It's nice to know those things, but it really doesn't bring about a transformation in our life. Just knowing those two things is not going to bring healing to you. Think about this. There are a lot of things that you and I know that don't change our lives. For example, I know if you can't find it at Walmart, it doesn't exist, right? But that doesn't change my life. That doesn't transform me. There's a lot of things in life that we know that don't transform us. There's got to be something bigger than simply knowing that God exists, knowing that He cares for me and He has the power to change me. There's got to be more. This third choice that we're going to talk about today is a critical choice, because the rest of the 5 weeks are going to hinge on whether you make a commitment to this choice or not. And that's why we call this the commitment choice. And it's this. It says to consciously choose. I consciously choose to commit all my life and will to Christ's care and control. This choice is based on a statement Jesus made in His most famous sermon, the Sermon on the Mount. A lot of us, we call it the Beatitudes. Why? I don't know, but we do, okay? And Jesus is basically telling us these 8 statements how to be blessed. He starts off each one with blessed, blessed are, blessed are, blessed are. He's telling us this is what you got to do if you want to be blessed. Another word for blessed is happy. If you want to be happy, do this. You want to be happy, do this. And here's what He says in verse 5. He says, this is Jesus speaking. He says, Matthew chapter 5, verse 5, He says this: blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. What Jesus is saying is, if you want to be healthy, if you want to be happy, if you want to be blessed, then you've got to be meek. You've got to be meek. Now here's the thing. You might be going, okay, well, what does that mean? You see, they didn't understand this concept in the first century. And I think a lot of us don't understand it here. Or maybe you do understand what meek means, but you don't want to embrace it because it feels kind of mousy, right? It feels kind of weak. If you're a guy in this room, you're going, meek? I don't think so. I want to be big, buffed. I want to be like the Terminator, or whatever. I don't want to be no girly man, whatever. I mean, think about this. If you played sports, we just watched a game where these two boys were playing football. Can you just imagine if they were in the game and the coach says, okay, get in the game. I want you to be as gentle as a dove. I want you to go after that quarterback and I want you to nurture him. That's not that's not going to inspire. That's not what we want to do. We want to crush them, right? No, we don't like that word meek. Doesn't feel right. It rubs us the wrong way. But if you're a follower of Jesus, meekness is not optional. In the original language of the Bible, the word for meek is praios. I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly. But this word praios has different levels of meaning. And on the surface, it can mean mild and humble. Now that sounds about right to a lot of us, right? That's what you thought meekness was, right? Mild and humble. In fact, a lot of people, when they think of Christians, that's the stereotype, you know? They're just kind of weak and spineless and wimpy, right? Mild and humble. But there's a deeper meaning to this word. And it's the one I really want to get to today. In the Greek, the word was often used to describe animals whose wild spirit was broken by a trainer. Now, why would that be? What's the point of breaking a wild horse? Breaking their spirit to make them useful, right? Imagine this. Imagine there's this wild stallion. Now, have you ever seen a wild stallion? I mean, muscles rippling. This stallion, this horse is just incredible. It's running like crazy. It's going 100 miles an hour. I mean, it's just, this thing is powerful. But then this trainer comes along and captures this horse and breaks that wild spirit. So it's not just doing whatever it wants to do, it's doing what the trainer wants that horse to do. Now, that horse can do amazing things. That horse becomes a battle horse. Do you know that's what they would do with battle horses? They would take a wild horse, they would break its spirit so it would train it to follow the commands of the rider. Does that sound weak, spineless to you? No. But that's meekness. Let me give you a definition for meekness that I think you need to own today. And that is, meekness is strength under control. Strength under control. God's not telling us that we got to be spineless, wimpy, nurture the quarterback kind of people. We can be strong. It can be courageous. We can be valiant. We can do amazing things, but we do it under God's control, not our own. We submit to the trainer and his will. We give up our wild ways and we do things his way. That's what meekness is. It's courage under fire. It's strength. Do you know that the spirit of meekness is actually the spirit of Jesus? Listen to this. I love this. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 21 through 23 says this: Christ suffered for you. He is your example, and you must follow in his steps. He never sinned, nor ever deceived anyone. He did not retaliate when he was insulted, nor threaten revenge when he suffered. He left his case in the hands of God, who always judges fairly. Jesus was not weak. There is so much he could have done if he chose to do it, to destroy all those that tried to put him on the cross. There's so many things that he could have done, but he was strength under control. He was submitted to God the Father and said, no, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to call a legion of angels to destroy these people and take me off this cross. No, because I am meant to be here. I'm going to allow this to happen. Jesus not only said, blessed are the meek, he modeled it in how he lives. Meekness has always been God's way for humanity. Moses in the Old Testament, the great leader and deliverer of the Jews, the one who oversaw the escape from Egypt, the shepherd of the people. This was not a man who I would call weak and spineless, right? But listen to this. In Numbers chapter 12, verse 3, it says this: now the man Moses was very meek above all men which were upon the face of the earth. Wait, it says that he was more meek than anybody. And yet he led the Israelites. He led them in battle. He was their leader. He was their judge. He was not a man who was weak and spineless. He was strength under God's control. And what I want you to get from this is that with God, meekness wins. It always wins. It's what separated Moses from everybody else. And God says, that's the heart that I want. I want the heart that is under my control, that's listening to me and doing the things that I'm telling you to do. Fast forward to the New Testament, and you've got Jesus delivering the most important sermon that he ever gave, and he says this. He says, happy are the meek, or blessed are the meek. Why? Because he's calling us to live a different kind of life. He's calling us to live at a different level. Here's how meekness fits with this third choice that we're talking about. If I'm not meek, then I can't realize my brokenness. If I don't humble myself, I can't commit all my life to Jesus Christ. I want to unpack this third choice a little bit. And I've kind of broken it up. And I want to talk about each section with you. And then at the end, we're going to ask if you want to take this, if you want to make this commitment for yourself. But let's start with the first word of the commitment choice, which is consciously. If you're taking notes, I want you to write next to that word, it's my decision. You know, some of us, we kind of assume a commitment to Jesus because of what I call and others call unconscious heritage. That you grab a position of faith based on your heritage. In other words, let me put it like this. My parents dragged me to church when I was a little kid, therefore I'm a Christian. Or we're a Christian nation and I'm a citizen, so therefore I'm a Christian. Or I've got a brother-in-law who's a priest, so I'm a Christian. Right? We kind of play the bloodline card. Or maybe you might say, hey, you know what? My middle name is Christian, so I must be a Christian. Or I have a Christian bumper sticker on my car. That must be it. I'm a Christian. This choice that we're talking about requires that we make a conscious decision, a conscious choice. Not somebody else making the choice for us. I always tell my boys, all the time that they've been growing up, we're constantly telling them, listen, you're coming to church with us because that's what we're training you to do, but we know that there comes a point when you have to choose this for yourself. They're not always going to live with us. You're not going to always have me running in telling them, get up, get out of bed, you got to go to church, right? It's not always going to happen that way. They've got to choose it for themselves. Do you serve God or do you not? So consciously, it's my decision. I've got to choose this. I can't just assume because my Aunt Betty brought me to church that I'm a Christian. I've got to choose it for myself. Next, choose to commit. Write down next to that over and over. I've got to choose to commit over and over. This is a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365-day choice. Every day that I have to make. A lot of people go, I chose God back in, January of 97, right? And that's kind of it for them. But that's not how it works. This is an over and over and over again choice. Do I choose my agenda or God's agenda? Do I choose to live my wild spirit, go wherever I want? Or am I strength under His control? You're sitting at the computer, you're ticked off at a friend or a coworker, somebody in your family. You can write this mean, nasty email. You know it's going to hurt them. Do you send it? Because it's your choice. Your way or God's way? You've got a friend who's hurting. You know they're hurting. You've got the means to help them, but it's going to take a lot of energy, time, even money. Do you help? It's your choice. Your way or God's way? Over and over again, you've got to make the choice. My way or God's way? The Bible says this in Romans 6:16. Don't you realize that you become the slave of whatever you choose to obey? You can be a slave to sin, which leads to death, or you can choose to obey God, which leads to righteous living. You've got to make that choice over and over and over. So I consciously choose to commit. And here's the big part. All of my life and will. Next to that, write everything. This is the part of the choice that separates those that walk authentically with Jesus and those who are just a casual fan. It's all in the word all. All means everything. Choosing a commitment to Jesus is not about half measures. He wants everything. Imagine your life as a tree. It's not like you say, okay, Jesus, here's a leaf. Oh, and here's another leaf. Oh, here's a branch. No, He says, no, I want you to cut down the whole tree. Because then He gives you a new self. A new life. That's the win. A brand new life with Jesus. But the cost is everything. Here it is in Luke 14:33. It says this, so you cannot become my disciple without giving up everything you own. You've got to lay it all down and say, Jesus, it's all yours. All my life and will. Let me give you an illustration of this. How many of you ever been in a scouting program like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or Weebos, or whatever? Yeah, I wasn't a Boy Scout, it was a Cub Scout. Yeah, that's what I was. But I was never a Boy Scout. But one of the things that Boy Scouts do is they have to do a lot of challenges or perform duties or service projects or experiments or commitments, right? And on completion of those, they get a badge, a merit badge, right? And they have this sash, and they wear all of these badges, right? Like a canoeing badge, right? Now, usually to do the canoeing badge, you have to do like some water safety things and some paddling. Maybe make a canoe out of pine cones and marshmallows, that kind of thing. But according to the Boy Scout website, there are over 100 merit badges. And when they get their merit badges, they display them on the sash. But here's why I want to share this with you. I think there are a lot of us in here that choke on the word all. We choke on the word all, on the word everything. And here's why. I think we do it because Jesus is just one of our badges. We've got the Jesus badge. We've earned that because we go to the church and we tithe and we're in a life group and we occasionally read the Bible. So we've got our Jesus badge. And one of the reasons why you and I are so sick and hurt and our habits and our hang-ups are still plaguing our life is because Jesus is just one of the many patches on our sash. It's a cool patch. Everybody loves the Jesus badge, right? But it covers the same amount of real estate as all the other patches. And that's one of the reasons why we can't deal with the pain and the hurt in our life. Because the Jesus badge occupies the same amount of space as the student badge, or the family badge, or the friend badge, or the exerciser badge, or the animal lover badge, or the shopper badge, or the socially conscious person badge. They're all great badges, and they represent different roles of our lives. But here's what happens. We get stuck in our hurt because Jesus is just one of the badges, and rarely do we make him first. But this third choice that we're talking about, it requires that I commit all of my life to Jesus. It doesn't mean that those other roles we have in our life disappear. They're just not prominent. It's Jesus plus nothing. Jesus is not an extra, he's everything. There are other roles that I have in my life. I've got my dad badge, right? I'm a dad. But I'm a dad who's trying to follow Jesus. I've got my friend badge. I've got friends. But I don't hide Jesus from my friends. I'm going to tell them about Jesus. Jesus is always my priority. Or he should be. He's not a bonus. He's not an extra. He's God. It's not about me having more badges so I can gather the willpower to change. It's about committing all my life, all that I have, everything to him, and allowing him to change me. So I consciously choose to commit all my life and will to Christ's care and control. And that's the next part. Christ's care and control. Next to that, I want you to write down, he loves me. That's what Christ's care and control is. He loves me. In week 1, we talked about how he's in control. And in week 2, we talked about how he's crazy about me and he cares for me. For some of you today, maybe that's all you needed to hear. That Jesus is crazy about you. That he loves you. He wants to be intimate and authentic in relationship with you. It's not a badge to be worn, it's a relationship to be lived. He wants you. Listen, when you commit your life to the will and care and control of Christ, the Spirit of God enters you and fills you with love and a new desire. You don't have to do it alone. You just walk on his path rather than your own. Listen to this in Matthew 11:28. Then Jesus says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." Because he cares. He cares. Blessed are the meek, happy, healed. Let's look at that choice one more time. It says, consciously choose to commit all my life and will to Christ's care and control. You know, I think all of us, if we were honest, if you and I sat down at lunch today, sat across from each other, I think we could all agree that we've got hurt and we've got pain in our life. We can relate to each other on the pain level. And I think for a lot of us, we'd say, you know what, there's got to be something more. There's got to be a better way than the way I'm living my life. And you know what's interesting is you heard today when Pastor Kim, she called out, that was totally spontaneous, by the way, if you didn't know that. I thought it was wonderful. But so many testimonies of how God has changed people. How he is changing them. And I would just say this, there is a better way. It's when you put your life into his hands. All of it, not just part of it. You don't just have the Jesus badge. You give him everything. And when you do that, when you commit to him like that, that's when you get the power to be changed. In John 10:10, Jesus says this, my purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. That's what I want. A rich and satisfying life. Being in the center of God's will for me. I don't want to do things my way because my way doesn't work. How many of you would agree with me? Your way, it ain't working. So here's my question to you. Will you? Will you commit all of your life over to the care and control of Jesus Christ? In just a minute, we're gonna offer this to you, and I'm gonna lead you in a prayer. But maybe you're here and you'd say, you know what, Pastor, I prayed that prayer like when I was a kid. I'm 90 years old now, and I don't think we have anybody that old yet. But I'm super old, and I've been doing this for a long time. And you know what? I don't need to do that kind of thing again. But you know what? What I found is sometimes we may have made a commitment a long time ago, and we may be on the outside seeming like we're walking the right path, but in truth, we really haven't given our life fully over to Christ's care and control. There's still some areas that we're holding on to. There's still some things that we're going, you know what? Jesus, you can have everything, but this, not yet. And I just want to ask you today, if that's you, because I know there's a lot of us in here, we've made that commitment. Jesus is in control of our life. But is he in control of every part? And if you would say, in all honesty, and you don't have to tell me what it is that maybe you haven't given over to God, but if you would, in all honesty, would say, you know what? That's me. There is an area that I really haven't given over to God. And you know what it is. And God knows what it is. But you would say today, enough is enough. I'm giving you control, God. I'm turning this over to you.